Most electric cars out on the market at the moment, there are second, sometimes third generations of electric car models. And so by this point in time, they're actually quite reliable. Most of the early issues that we've seen with batteries and charging have been ironed out at this point. So vast number of vehicles on the market are reliable, and most consumers who try one really like them. So it is a very positive change in the market. They're probably becoming some of the most attractive, most interesting, most desirable cars on the market now. Very naturally, electric cars have fewer components, fewer moving parts, fewer mechanical parts, so they're naturally more reliable than traditional internal combustion engine cars. There's simply fewer things to go wrong and break down. That will continue to improve as manufacturers scale up production facilities and supply chains grow, and they have more choice of different components of battery materials and that sort of thing. It's already not an issue. It will continue to improve. There is no reason why battery electric vehicles won't be the most reliable vehicles on the roads. Range of electric cars is a hot topic. Lots of people care about it, lots of people talk about it. Part of the reason for that is because battery as an energy storage system it's less dense than traditional fuel. And so battery electric vehicles do have lower range than internal combustion engine vehicles. Having said that, it is improving very rapidly. Most people who first tried an electric vehicle would have done so a few years ago, and they probably would have driven a vehicle that's less than 100 miles in range. Sometimes, maybe as low as 60 or 70, and that's left a lot of people quite worried about how practical that is. Now we're seeing vehicles on the market that go up to 200 miles and higher, consistently and reliably. So already that's not, as an issue, that's being removed, and by the time we get to somewhere around 2030, we anticipate that most vehicles will easily be in the 200 to 300 mile range. Now, that is still not as much as internal combustion engine vehicles, but that's really not the question. The question is it sufficient for most people's needs? And that kind of range we think is sufficient, and it will cater to most journeys. And the longer journeys that need more range than that, of course, that's where then charging infrastructure comes in to try and help that. It is more of an issue in rural areas, and in general areas where you do have to travel longer distances in between destinations. But it also needs to be said that unlike petrol cars, electric cars have the opportunity to refuel at home overnight. So unlike with a petrol car, most people will start their journey fully charged, whereas most petrol car drivers don't start their journey fully refueled. So that's already an advantage. And then beyond that, a 200 to 300 mile range is probably more than enough to cover most journeys, even in rural areas. So we do think that will stop being an issue in the coming years, yeah. The issues covered by the Automated and Electric Vehicles Act are actually, they seem to be addressing the majority of the issues around usability of charging infrastructure, interoperability from users' perspective. So things like accessing charging points on sort of pay-as-you-charge ways without having to have subscriptions across different schemes, transparency of pricing information and data availability. It seems to be addressing those things. It's too early to say how effective it has been, because we haven't seen the secondary legislation that's going to actually put into force the different mechanisms that have been enabled through the Act. From what we have seen so far, things like introduction of smart charging for charging points introduced through government funding, that's one of the first things that have been implemented. And that seems to be quite effective and hopefully will make a big difference.